Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to talk about a lot of things, but mainly I want to focus on Heaven's Halberd. However, before we can talk about it, as the item is not really in the meta, we have to kind of get to the point why I think it matters. There are some good things about Halberd that we can already kind of theoretically think, and thankfully, this is not one of those ideas that I just have on my own. Uh, and there's no support for it in the pro scene, so we actually have some games we can look at. Alright, so the plan for this video, and I just generally think it's good to make this plan, I guess, so that viewers can really understand what's going to be happening, what to expect. So first we're going to talk about terrain, meaning there's the whole map and there's like sections of the map, they're different, high ground, low ground, etc. There's like rivers, etc. We're going to talk about that and the type of implications it has. Second, we're gonna kind of look at some examples, or maybe first it's just content of the video. Because I'm doing this kind of live. It's not I don't know in what way it's gonna be structured, but I think it's for the best because the idea really is just to look at what's happening. There's this is not something that gives you an answer, straight up answer, because well, when you're looking at things that are emerging, things that are not the meta yet, or maybe they will never be, you kind of have to, I think, not try to pretend that you already know everything or have all the answers. So I'm just like learning. I of course have some preparations. I don't do this truly live where it's I just like, okay, what's the idea for the Heavens Halberd, and then I try it because the video will be like 6 hours long, but it still is kind of live. So okay. So we might follow this order, maybe not. So we're gonna look at some games, specifically related to terrain. Then we're gonna do some theory about Halberd, and we're gonna look at some games. Halberd, I guess it's Halberd games. I think all in all, this plan, should give us a pretty good direction in terms of what to expect, what to think about. There's like this caveat, that there's gonna be a patch, and the patch might be in between Dream League group stages. So there's like group stage 1, there's group stage 2. So maybe somewhere in between there's gonna be a patch. But there is a good chance that something that is strong right now but is underused is gonna get buffed. But we'll get to that a bit later. Okie dokie. I think I already kind of see that we're just going to start with a little bit of gameplay. This is from Blast Slam Finals on, I think, February 13th, 15th, so almost a week ago, like this past weekend. These finals were held. And I was originally going to make a video about those finals as related to this terrain question, like this whole thing, but kind of ended up not to, because Dream League started right after, and it just feels like too much of the same thing, my last few videos. All right, so what are we looking at? For those wondering, what do I mean by terrain? Terrain, I just mean territory, like the map. As you can see, for example, this is different from this, and this is different from this, etc. And the difference isn't really obvious. It's not really spelled out in a very obvious way in a very obvious way in the game. It is just something you kind of get through intuition. And well, we'll see kind of what we can gather. All right, so what's happening here is that Team Liquid, eventual champions, are playing against Navi. It's game 2. As you can see, 12,000 gold at 24 minutes is a lot. And they're entering this territory, which Astini calls this basically territory around this cliff, Brazil. Uh, I don't know if it's a good name for it, but it's definitely these two cliffs are definitely uh, special. Let's put it this way, because they have this appeal to them for some reason, but then they're very dangerous. All right, so what is happening here? They're gonna get into this territory. Again, they're 12,000 gold ahead, Navi, and we're kind of looking at the Navi's perspective, or like we're trying to understand what happened to Navi. So Tiny uses Blink, Warlock wards here, and kind of walks out. As you can see, there's a preparation for the fight. So Liquid, I mean, long story short, Liquid think that this is a good place to fight. And, well, so do Navi. What happens is Tiny runs into Warlock, who is... I don't know 100% if he's baiting, but he could be. As he has a buyback, it's kind of not exactly really cheap, but it's kind of cheap. It's like if you get 1 kill after you buy back, then you're gonna be kind of even, almost. 200 gold. It's not really that big a deal. So he gets tossed. He gets insta killed by TA, who then uses her Billing Dagger. She gets clipped. And there is like spellcasting. Warlock, of course, buys back. There is Batrider Initiation onto this guy. And Clock hooks TA. A very important hook, because essentially he's saving this guy. Maybe he's going to be able to do something. Alright, so, by the way, really dislike the decision by Valve to do this. A player has paused the game. They kind of glued together replays and the original game. I don't know why they did this, but in replays, maybe we can move this somewhere else, because when I pause, I want to look at my screen. I don't. Anyway, so if we're looking at Navi's positioning, as you can see, they're stuck kind of together. And this is kind of natural for this territory, because if we kind of go back a little bit and look at what are the potential scenarios here. Where can the fight happen? The fight can happen at tier 2 tower somewhere, because if Liquid are falling back, they're going to be falling back to this tower or this tower. So Navi can kind of go this way towards the tower, or Liquid are going to be pressing forward, and maybe Navi are going to have to back down. So the fight either is going to happen here, or Liquid are going to retreat to the tower, or Navi are going to retreat to high ground, most likely. In terms of retreating for Navi, they probably will not run this direction. They probably will not run this direction, because this is very awkward, as you can kind of interact through the tower, etc. I mean, through this, terrain. So naturally, they're going to be drawn to, to this. However, if you have several heroes trying to get here, you're gonna get stuck kind of close to each other because of these ramps. As you will try to use these ramps, you will get stuck somewhere here together. Theoretically, if you're playing this territory, you should be thinking that, okay, if I have to step back, at least one of the cores has to be thinking he has to go this direction. So the general problem with this territory and this portion of the map is the number of entrances. And for those of you who play like CSGO, CS2, you can look at the maps and see that the maps are structured in such a way that there is some sort of balance between points of entry. So for Liquid here, points of entry are 1, essentially 2, because you can kind of come from this direction if somebody TP'd here because they were farming. So this 1, 2, there is this, so kind of 3, 4, and because this is really wide, we can count it as 5. So theoretically, there are like several points of entry that can be used. And it's up to Liquid to decide. But for Navi, there's really only kind of one point of entry. It's this. There is some kind of play here, but it's awkward because you kind of want to participate together with the team. So in some sense, like if you're planning to attack this, this has to be kind of orchestrated. Somebody maybe has to be coming from here, but you can see like this is very disjointed. If you're trying to make this maneuver, then people who are fighting in this space are, you know, if they mess up like the timing, you will just be too far. You will not be able to get there. And the way the river flows here for, you know, it's more advantageous to get out of this territory than to get in. If the river flow was in the different direction, if this was speeding up, then you could potentially come from this angle, maybe somehow like from this angle. But yeah, so the point here is that if you're all kind of grouping up 5 men coming from here, you will eventually probably get stuck somewhere here unless you really plan for it. And kind of this, everything I'm saying applies here because they're kind of not exactly mirrored, but they're very similar, you know. And this cliff is here, like it's, you know, tactical, strategical cliff in the sense like specifically for that reason. So that not only do you have points of entry, but you can see sort of the whole battlefield here. And there's a watcher here, so, you know, it kind of is sort of, this territory is designed so that it's advantageous for Radiant or, you know, Dire, depends on which one, you know. So this is very dangerous by design. This is not randomly dangerous. It's, or let's put it this way, it's very likely that whoever was, you know, designing this level, they were thinking about this. And it doesn't really mean that they knew exactly what they were doing, in the sense like it doesn't always come out the way you plan it, but maybe they did some battle testing, maybe they have some like design patterns that they're following, etc. So kudos to developers if they planned for this territory to be like this, because I see it almost every single game. I'm tired of seeing it. It's been like this for a very long time, and it's we're gonna get back to it, but it's very successful from the idea of level design, this portion of the map, because it does exactly what you want it to do. All right, so TA gets hookshotted, really good hookshot, because, you know, the damage isn't there, and what you can see here is it's a very interesting situation where theoretically this looks kind of really promising, right? For Navi, they took out Warlock, who buys back. This guy is stuck, but realistically, just with the gold advantage, they should have enough damage to kill everybody. And now they catch Darkseer. He wasted his wall, sort of, because TA could blink out, so in some sense, this is gonna be pretty good. The problem really is there's a guard, but it's running out, so if they kill Darkseer here, I mean, he has no buyback, actually, so then the fight probably is gonna be pretty good for Navi. Maybe again winning fight. The problem here is that Nico misses his meteor, like it was some random meteor onto a moving target. This guy just hasn't used Hurricane Pike. So they're not finishing this guy. He has stick. Maybe if they casted their spells a bit better, he would be dead. But you can see the reason that this Nico is running away is because he can see like we might get stuck here, and then it might turn ugly because he doesn't have a BKB. If he gets cogged, it can very fast turn ugly. Oh, actually, there are no cogs, so he don't have to worry about that. But they definitely don't want to get, you know, like 3-man, you know, Sonic Wave. They do end up getting 3-man Sonic Wave, and only Ringmaster is kind of playing this territory when probably Nico should be playing this territory. But because 3 cores are stuck like this, I mean, it's a disaster. Tiny's dead. And, well, you know, if you play Dota in this patch, you see that almost... Not every game, but you see it so often. If one of the sides starts winning the early game, like by 20 minutes, they go into this territory and they just feed. Alright. So, what does it have to do with us? Like, it ends up being like a 12k gold lead, fighting here, and then, you know, you all die. The way you can look at this portion of the map is that... okay, so I hope everybody kind of sees what I'm talking about, that they got stuck, but they didn't really get stuck because they're bad. It's mostly because this territory is designed to do this to you, and you really need to work and like properly position yourself so that it doesn't happen. That's the point. So, all right, this is a pretty good example, and you can see like because of this, the game kind of, they still had advantage, but it took way longer, specifically because of this fight. It kind of gave Liquid breathing room. Okay, let's go back to our chart. So the idea here is okay. So I'll just try to draw the portion of the map that we're fighting. So this is a tier 3 tower, this is a tier 2 tower, right? And then there's this river here. There's another like tier 2 tower. And so they're kind of like there's some forest here, like there are ramps here. Kind of I hope it no wait, ramps if this is the river. Okay, this is gonna be the river, this is gonna be high ground. Hope everybody's following. This is the ramps. Anyway, so the fight is kinda happening here, and Tiny went here. There's like let's do it this way. This is the cliff. Very important. Okay, so Tiny went here. And then Navi are kind of stuck in this position. The way you prevent this from happening, you kind of have to think about it that this portion of the map is plus whatever n gold or radiant. What this means is that let's say at 20 minutes this might be 5,000 gold territory, meaning for when Radiant are fighting here, it's as if they have 5,000 gold more, sometimes even more, sometimes less, etc. But that's the idea, that you have to come into this territory and kind of expect that this gives them sort of like economic advantage. That fighting in this territory is much harder. So if you were planning, if you look at this from that perspective, then you can kind of see that if you're if you have minus 10k gold, then the next fight you take, you kind of think to yourself, okay, how we will structure it? Like, what will be our attack kind of angle? Who's going to be here, who's going to be here, who's going to be here, who's going to use stuns, etc. Because you're losing on gold, you cannot just expect, okay, guys, like everybody just run in and we will kill all of them. It usually doesn't work that way. It's the same thing here. And the reason why it happens when teams are ahead is because they kind of discredit the advantage that this like blue territory gives them. It gives the enemy. So the way they think about it is that, okay, we have plus 10k gold, so really all this planning, all this planning is we don't care. Why? Well, because we're ahead on gold. We can, there's this idea of counter execution threshold, meaning that we have enough gold so that we can cast our spells kind of bad, but we're still going to win. The problem is this territory kind of negates that. This whole territory kind of turns your 10k gold advantage. It's hard to put a number on it, but it might be worth like 10k gold, depending on heroes, etc. So you think you're going in with 10k gold, but maybe there's 5k because of where you are fighting. Now this logic to implement it in the game is quite hard, but generally the way you should see the map, I think, or like teams should think about the map, is that you constantly have this metrics, like maybe there's damage metric, survivability, whatever metrics you have. And then the map is sort of divided into this, clusters of territory where you have this, this is plus, 1, this is minus 2, this is plus 3 on like initiation scale, this is minus 4 on like defensive scale, etc. I'm just like making up numbers, but you get the idea, like if we're fighting here, etc. And so if you think in this way, you kind of divide the map into, this kind of territories, etc. You will suddenly start to think about it in much easier terms, because realistically, when this territory, these two portions of the map, if they're like plus 5k for the defending team, plus plus 5k gold for if you take the fight. However, if you don't take the fight, they are maybe minus 3k gold, or let's not say minus 3k, minus 2k gold or something like that. Why? Because they're stuck here in a very bad spot. So there's some sort of balance to this, at least the way I see it. So really what you want to do is to force the enemy team into this position, and then just keep them there, not take a fight. Because if you take the fight, you kind of realize these gains for them. But if you don't take the fight, you kind of do this. Which is an interesting way, I think, to think about Dota. And I can quite confidently say that this is part of game design, because if we go back a little bit, to the patch of 7.33, which is okay, sorry, I have to pause for a sec. I'm back. I didn't even notice that I was gone. Magic of television. Alright, so in 7.33, it was quite a long time ago, a couple of years ago. It was an update that had a lot of map reworks. That's when Tormentor, etc. were introduced. But what interests us is, maybe people will remember this. There has been a time when we had actual biomes or territories in the game. So we had the well, the mines, the statue, the graveyard, which had some bonuses that you would get. You would get in Mighty Mines, you would get +4 health regen. What is this? This is not. You got mana regen in the different one, but the thing that interests us is. Alright, this time this was my bad. Okay, so the Mighty Mines buff, etc. We don't really care what it gave, but just the idea that this was in the game. So this is something that the developers are thinking about. How does it relate to what we're doing? Well, as I said before, we have these territories on the map. It's not exactly clear what bonuses they give, etc. But since that was removed, the things we have left are essentially the rivers, kind of this direction, and I think this sort of direction, this direction, this direction. We have like the move speed thing. We have high ground, which is vision and miss chance. There's Drow Ranger, who has like bonus damage when she's on high ground, but that's like such a niche thing that it doesn't really matter. What else we have? Vision, miss chance, move speed. I think that's it. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't exactly remember. All right, so a different thing is towers. So if we take, say, this tier 2 towers and this tier 2 tower, they have a buff that gives like plus some regen and armor. It's the same thing here. Like this tower, it has like this range where it, I mean, this range is a bit too big. Okay, I should like it has this range where it gives the buff, right? So it's kind of also terrain. It's also something that, especially in laning, it makes sense. That if the enemy carry is standing near the tower somewhere, then, you know, he's going to be better off than the offlaner who's trying to, you know, attack, and this guy, the red dot, is better off. So we have these things. When it comes to the game, so when we go back to our, you know, game, and there's a team fight somewhere in the middle, where, let's say, like the blue, red. So let's say we have a Largo who has around him his spell, and sort of he moves around, and he kind of creates this territory. And that's the same with ores, etc. So it's kind of important to understand that the territories are not like in, if you play Civ games where you have these tiles and they have like +4, +3, and that's it. This is this tile. These things, they can move around the map, so that there can be something that moves somewhere and creates there. Or, basically, in some sense, heroes, they act onto a territory sometimes. And it often is what determines who wins the fight. How well you can manipulate like the area that you have. All right, all of this is good. It's kind of basic, but I think it's important to understand like the general principle of how it works and what to think about. That we have this terrain that we fight on, and we can kind of manage this terrain by giving buffs and debuffs, etc. The more interesting case is that if we go back to this is tier 2 tower, this is tier 3 tower, this is tier 2 tower. So this is tier 2, tier 2, tier 3. So this is radiant. And as you remember, this territory that we were describing, there's like that gives like bonus gold, right? The thing that happens very often is that, say, a team attacks into this territory. And the problem is getting out of this territory after is not so simple. And part of the reason why it's not so simple when you go into this territory is sort of, I don't know what the physical name for it is, but it's the same as when you're doing the siphon. I think everybody knows this. But let's say we have like a bucket of water, right? And if we put like a straw in it, no, let's say this is a straw, sort of like that goes like this, I think. I don't remember, should it go lower than, yeah, I think it should go lower than where it takes the water or something. And if we siphon from this, then the water, it's gonna go up, once, and once it's here, it's just gonna keep flowing. And that's it. It's just gonna keep flowing and flowing and flowing. So I don't remember what's called, but the idea here is that you have like water is kind of connected to itself. So once you act on the first one, so once this is out, this just kind of follow this pattern. Maybe it's an improper explanation and I butchered it, but the idea is very simple. That in Dota, the same kind of concept can apply. Where's my eraser? Intermission. Well, if you care about Dota, maybe it's good to sit and think about this a little bit. All right, so maybe this is a butchered explanation of how it works in physics, but I hope you get the idea. Why is it relevant in Dota? In Dota, you kind of have the same pattern happening very often. If you have one hero that goes here, this is like your pos 1 or pos 3, for example, or in case of Navi, that was pos 4. The whoever is like, let's say it's like pos 4 that's connected to pos 3, whoever is connected is kind of dragged in there by the same principle. It's not so easy to stop this movement. It has to be like a very specific decision. And it's difficult to be in that state of mind all the time that you're ready to disconnect from your teammate. You're ready to just leave him behind. So this principle, it works very often. That it just, the first one gets dragged in, and then the rest just, this guy is 4, and then there's like pos 2 connected to pos 4, and then there's pos 1, and there's like pos 5. And they all kind of end up in this scenario. It's very often that it happens. It happens like almost every game you can find a scenario where this happens. Because of that, it is kind of really important to connect it to this idea of territories, because if you have this structure and you go into the territory without thinking what kind of territory it is in, it's not so simple to get out. So once you step in there, it's like a swamp, you know, it's like quicksand. It sucks you in, and getting out in Dota is not always easy, especially if you don't plan. And like decoupling, let's say there's two guys feed and we just get out, it's not easy as well because you don't really know if they're going to do something or if they're going to win the fight, etc. So the easiest, the way I see it, the easiest way to kind of bring it all together is just kind of understand that this territory, this plus 5k gold territory or whatever amount of gold territory, like when you go in there, you have to be prepared to go in there. You have to be prepared for the danger. So you have to keep it in mind. How is the territory structured? Okay, so what does it have to do with Halberd? Halberd is not a kind of relevant item right now. So in my opinion, Halberd manipulates this, not only Halberd, but Halberd especially, manipulates a slightly different thing about the game than the like major meta items. Because major meta items, as we've discussed just now, you have a territory, and major meta items like Guardian Greaves, you know, even Yules, etc., they manipulate territory around the hero. They manipulate something about the territory. In a lesser kind of case, they manipulate how enemies interact with the territory. But if our goal is to fight in a territory that is beneficial to us, we somehow need to make our enemies go in there and not be able to get out. Like this cannot happen. To make this happen, obviously you can stun them, etc., but you can also prevent them from achieving their goals in that territory, and then they might get stuck. Because, you know, getting out might also be bad for them now because they wanted to fight. And what Halberd does is that it plays on the fact that there is a timing. So once you get into the territory, into a certain spot, there is a timing that you have to act in it, usually. So Halberd kind of does that, in that it prevents you from, for 3 seconds, like a core cannot attack, and sometimes it's extremely important to do that. So let's say if we take heroes that are really popular right now as carries, like for example TA or SF. You know, these heroes are very much based on positioning, and their position is kind of fixed by having Dragonlance and then Pike. Those are kind of important items specifically because, and well, Blink Dagger for TA as well, because they let you not get stuck in these like spots you go in, and you don't just get stuck there and die. But eventually you either win the fight or you get out. Usually you want to like kind of do the hit and run thing, and then Halberd stops that from happening. Quite simple. So it's kind of like a counterplay to this idea. So yeah, you can get in and get out, but you will not do any damage. To do damage, you actually need to get in and stay there, and stay in this territory that you might not want to stay in. I think it would be a good idea now to go back to Dota and look at Halberd as an item. So what is Halberd? Why Halberd? Like, all right, so Halberd is an item kind of got changed, I think, in the last patch, or I don't remember when exactly. Not very popular, so some people might not know what it's even built as. Let's take Phoenix. So there are a few very important things about Halberd. I'm sorry, we're gonna have to go back to Edge for a second. The thing I wanted to show you is there's a method. It's not really like official or anything, but it's just a method that I personally use kind of when I'm looking at the items and think about them. Basically, there's a way to calculate how much the item is worth in terms of, like, there's a cost of the item, in case like Moonshard, it's the cost is 4,000, but then the worth is just the attack speed. So, you can kind of calculate how much attack speed it gives you, and then just kind of how much you pay and how much you get. So Moonshard, for example, is like, via my calculations, is 80% there. It doesn't really matter how much, like, how relevant this is. People can do it in a different way, but there's a way kind of to bring everything together. As you can see, for example, Orchid is just the stats, so I don't count the silence. Just the stats are worth more than the item's cost, so the item is generally pretty good. With Shadowblade, for example, it's the other way around. Like, the item has like a very specific use case, and Aeon Disc is the same thing, etc. So the thing that we're interested in is, how do I... This is armlet when it's on, which is, kind of makes sense. All right. This is all good. Here's Heaven Halberd. So just the stats, without the block, without the active, just the stats are pretty good. So the item kind of pays for itself. Kind of the same as Meteor Hammer. Like, it just pays for itself. Same with Spirit Vessels, same with Witchblade. And you can see a lot of these items have this. And the reason for it is to keep them competitive. If you really nerf the stats on Pipe, for example, nobody's going to buy it, etc., etc. So the idea is fairly simple, that Heaven's Halberd is a decent item. It's not exactly much better than many of the competitors. It's not like insane in stats, but it's pretty good. Okay. It's important to kind of realize it. So stats-wise, 275 HP, 6 health, regeneration 5, all attributes. It's decent. Obviously, it's best used on heroes that are... that are in this category, the universal ones, because it gives all stats. But, all stats are nice. It's not some absurd amount of stats, so it's okay for many heroes. How does it actually work? First of all, it is important to distinguish on range and on melee heroes. It works a little bit different. Because this is a melee hero, this is a range hero that has the halberd. It blocks less. It blocks, you can barely see it, but it blocks 30 damage. On a melee hero, it would block 60, which, depending on the timing when you get that item, could be significant. So in essence, it kind of already pushes us to buy it on melee heroes, but doesn't really restrict anything. The interesting thing about the active is that active is actually strong dispels only. So in case of Ursa, for example, Enrage is a strong dispel, right? So it completely dispels it. However, popular items that are used as dispels will not work. Because this is a basic dispel. Same thing with Satanic. And this is where you can kind of see it used most, is when people buy Satanic kind of for dispel and healing, and essentially it nerfs 50% of the Satanic. And usually cores are trying to use Satanic to they get low and then they use Satanic to get back up. If you don't let them use Satanic the first 3 seconds, they might just die because they were counting on using that. So in that sense, it's pretty good. As you can see, like, Satanic does nothing. The thing it doesn't work against is BKB. Even though BKB is not a strong dispel, some might, I was surprised to find that out. It's not a strong dispel, but it doesn't go through BKB. So the Ursa is still disarmed, but the BKB prevents for it to take effect. So it doesn't get dispelled, but it has no effect. So BKB works. Essentially, in many scenarios, you have this 20-second cooldown spell that can, force enemy to use both BKB and Satanic. It's not enough to just use Satanic. They need to use both. Same idea applies to Lotus Orb, that, if a support has Lotus Orb and tries to save the carry or to help carry with it, it doesn't do anything. So in that sense, Heaven's Halberd has like a very specific reason to exist in the meta when it comes down to heroes that buy Satanic and try to do it in fights. Like it's this BKB Satanic kind of interaction. Okay, so that's relevant, that it doesn't get just easily dispelled. In your games, I'm talking mostly about Pro Dota, but in your games, the item is non-existent, so some carries might not even know. You might play your game and the enemy just will not know that Satanic doesn't dispel it, and they will die because of it, and you might win, because if it happens late game, it could be like game-ending mistake. So even in that case, it's already kind of important. The more interesting thing about Heaven's Halberd is that you can see at the bottom there, it says can be disassembled. So theoretically, if you buy it early, you can pivot into Crimson Guard quite easily. It's not that hard. And then this could be made into, a Hollow Locket if you need that, into Solar Crest if you need that. Could also be sold. The Recipe obviously can be sold. It's only, you only lose 225 gold. So in that sense, it kind of has like this at least one avenue which you can use. I haven't seen anyone really abuse it, but it goes a little bit further that you see Vanguard can also be disassembled, and then you have like all these options of going into Lotus Orb, maybe Lincolns, but that's more for cores. You also have this option to go into all these items. So I will not claim that I really understand how to abuse this to maximum potential, but the thing is that this is one of those things in Dota that might just come up before TI or during TI, and everybody's just going to be doing it. I don't know if it's going to happen, but this is one of those kind of things that I haven't seen anyone really try to experiment with in competitive matches. I don't know about like disassembling back down to Vanguard, etc., but disassembling into Vanguard and then later getting Crimson on supports as well, like on Phoenix for example, is definitely doable if you no longer, because you can theoretically just buy this and then buy Halberd a second time. I think it's doable. You can do it. That kind of answers a simple question. If like for example, if you buy Yules instead of Halberd, you can there's room to grow basically late game. It just doesn't end there. If you buy Orchid on the core, like there's room to grow, like you can go. So there's an upgrade. In some sense, Halberd also has like avenue towards an upgrade. It's the same like with Yules, for example. I mean with Atos, that it gets upgraded and so on. So the item, just from theoretical standpoint, so that we're clear, the numbers on the item are good. What is not good about the item is it doesn't really let you farm. So let's say morphing with that item just doesn't make any sense because the hero just will not farm. It will be tankier, but it will not farm. On the other hand, a hero like, let's say, Axe, it might actually work because he has a built-in farming tool. It doesn't require mana, so that might work. It kind of is a bit weird to do that, but basically there are things you can consider and think about. The thing that surprised me when I was looking at what heroes are successful with Halberd, one of those heroes is Legion Commander, and I was wondering what the hell, who's buying, but then it became quite obvious it's because of Lincoln Sphere. Usually, like when I looked at the games, people are just buying it after the Ags so that they can pop the Lincoln and then do it. It's a bit better to Halberd is a bit better than, for example, Yules, because you don't accidentally Yule the target. Worst case scenario, they are disarmed. But maybe Orchid is a bit better if you want to be popping Lincolns. Maybe even Dagon a bit better. Because on Legion Commander, if you disarm them and you have Blade Mail, it might cost you the duel, etc. But that's just a niche thing. So another item, another usage is you can pop Lincolns on somebody. Okay, so that's kind of the theory behind the item, and let's see if anyone is actually playing this. On the website that I'm currently working on, I'm updating it for current tournaments, but it's a work in progress, so don't expect too much. But there's some useful information you can find there. So, as you can see, there are not that many purchases of Heaven's Halberd. If we look at especially like 4 or 5 position, no, it's here. Win rates. I want this. Hello. I guess it's processing everything that yeah, okay, yeah, my bad. Interesting. Never happened to me before. That it would bug out like that. Okay, anyway, if we're gonna look at the 4 or 5 position items that are, you know, a bit more expensive, obviously Blink Dagger, and let's say do it by win rate, and maybe just a little bit higher purchase rate. It doesn't even show up here, so you know we're gonna need to really look at, yeah, that thing. As I said, not many, you know, it's still work in progress. Anyway, so this is only 4 or 5 position, and the tournaments are all of these tournaments. You can see not that many games on these items, and if we look at the more popular items, it's obviously like Aeon Disc, Hex, BKB, Vladimir's is pretty good. So there are a lot of other items that people are buying, like Yules, etc. So if we think about like the Halberd, it's definitely a very niche thing that very few. I wonder why it's working so. It worked way better just a couple of hours ago. Interesting. Seems like something is bugged. Anyway, as you can see, there are only 8 purchases and 5 wins, but that has a caveat to it. And people who bought it is Fortnite Man BZM actually bought it once, Collapse bought it once, Nightglass, and Delight. Or Delight, I don't know how the actual name is pronounced. Okay, let's look at what games are those where people buy it. So a couple of people bought it, but it's not exactly popular. In this game, Nightglass buys it, but he did buy it extremely late. Like 25 minutes in. Extremely late, I mean, for the game. They were so ahead, it was ridiculous. They were already like 22k gold ahead. At 24 minutes, it's pretty much the game was over. He only used it once, and I don't think it mattered at all. So in this game, it's like could buy any item. It didn't really matter. There's another game where he bought the item. Again, Nightglass, by the way. This game, he buys it on Kotal. He has a pretty good game. This is against OG, and this is actually what we're gonna look a little bit at. I didn't mention it, but generally, well, there are so few times that people buy it, but mostly people buy it in late game. Why is it 30 minutes? I need 45 minutes. Okay, so what's happening here? Let's watch. So they're winning by 6,000 gold on Fire Vision. They did lose Roche fight, or something happened there that Gyro had Aegis. Gyro pushes with the Aegis, gets clock hooks Satanic. There's a big fight. I barely understand what's happening. But long story short, didn't get Satanic off, you know. Satanic didn't get Satanic off. Well, Anyway, dies without buyback. They start losing their base. Gyro, no more Aegis, but you know. And this is the moment kind of where you go back a little bit. Come on, man. So he was planning on Kotal to buy... What is it called? Octane Core? Kind of decided not to. I guess was saving for buyback. Thought for a second to buy a BKB maybe. They kind of get caught here. He gets out. And so they're kind of defended... oh, okay, so they used 3 buybacks. Ah, that's why he had no buyback. So they killed him after buyback. So after all of this, all of that happened, he's kind of thinking, and he buys Halberd. So the way I'm seeing this, he probably was buying it in pubs. So there's some kind of pub meta. I don't think you come up with this, like if you never bought this item, I don't think you come up with it on the spot. And yeah, so there's something to it. So they're in the situation where they have no carry and they're defending their base. Potentially losing, but to be honest, OG are... Alright, this video is not to discuss what teams are doing, but you know, like there's Crimson, there's the new buff because of the barracks, etc. Like you're not killing this. There's no way you're doing this. There's too much stopping you from, you know, killing it. Anyway, so he buys Halberd. And what happens here is, let's watch from his perspective. You can see that why Halberd is good on this particular here is because this gives you 300 cast range and it's already 650, so it actually gives you more for some reason. Ah, because he has this probably, yeah. So he has 1,000 cast range on this item, so it's quite easy to use it against Gyro because, you know, Gyro has kind of small attack range. He doesn't have the pike. So it's not that hard. This attacks in really large range, obviously, but basically he's not going to be hitting you with a lot of like right clicks right away. Sorry if this was too long of an explanation. Let's watch this again. So he just walks in and just kind of even more... He was already, you know, it was already difficult for him to hit the tower, but they just make it miserable for Gyro to attack. And the cooldown, 20 seconds is, although it's a pretty long cooldown, there's literally no way for him to dispel it except using BKB. So if he can use this item twice, it's not bad. Gyro uses BKB. It's like the Halberd's still on cooldown. Kinda gets caught but has buyback. Didn't get there in time, but once Gyro had no BKB, basically, you know, Halberd was gonna be even more useful. I don't think he uses it here anymore. Let's go a bit further in this replay. They successfully defend, by the way. 47-24, I think, is the timing. Again, big fight. Kinda equal gold. He uses it on Beastmaster, who is BKB'd, so it doesn't really do anything. Kinda wasted. But there's no Gyro, like there wasn't really a better way to use it. I don't think there's Lincoln that he was trying to proc. So this was not a very useful way to use it, but yeah, didn't really matter. Now, the more interesting case is here. Now that they want to fight, they kind of push the high ground, push the base. They go in onto Gyro, who uses BKB. Halberd, you know, still active, has ult going, so massive cast range. Darkseer buys back, Clockwork Hook, and they basically go onto SF. Now, from Gyro's perspective, here's what happens. They have no base, but SF I think still has no buyback, right? Yeah, still no buyback, 3 minutes. So maybe if they kill SF, you know, they have a chance. So he flex and wants to attack the cog to hit everybody. And he starts hitting it. But you can see he is confused as to why he cannot attack. And the reason is because he is disarmed. SF actually survives because of it. If Gyro was able to attack, SF would die. So from SF's perspective, he gets hooked. He gets stunned again. Uses Satanic, uses Spike. And you can see he used everything he could. He survived on like 500 HP. If Gyro attacked like 3 times in that 3 seconds, this guy would be dead with no buyback. And then I don't think they lose, but you know, it was relevant. Like this was definitely relevant. For example, if he instead of that he had what's it, Solar Crest or Satanic or whatever, I mean, or Skadi or Hex, maybe Hex would be pretty good, but it would have pretty much the same effect as Halberd, except it does cost way more, and the cooldown is the same, etc. The nice part about Halberd as well is that it's 25 mana only, which is not really a problem for Kotal, but for some heroes it's, you know, it's quite nice because you don't have a lot of mana. And SF survives, and I think this is it. I don't think he uses it anymore in this game. Okay, yeah. So this is an example of where it mattered. It mattered not really twice, but that last usage of Halberd was pretty good. And the thing is, you got to see this interaction between stopping enemy from attacking or like doing this with how SF managed to change his positioning. So he managed to actually get out of cogs. He managed to escape like this really bad situation and then turn it around. Specifically because he got this time. So this whole terrain idea is tied very closely to these items that allow you to kind of switch where you're fighting, or how the terrain, like wait out while the terrain is good and bad and so on. But that is the main factor. The main factor is not really to stop Gyro from attacking, it's to stop Gyro from attacking at a specific moment in time. There are other items you can kind of get to do that, but you just generally don't see Halberd right now as one of the items that does that. And, you know, it's always good to understand all your options, to understand everything you have. 5 seconds. And, well, to me, it does seem that Halberd is underused, so that's why I'm kind of looking at it. All right. This is Collapse Bayonet at 40 minutes. This is one of those kind of last hope purchases. So he buys it at kind of similar position. Carry dead, buys Halberd. By the way, these games are recent, so this is from Dream League. Previous games were also from Dream League. So he buys Halberd, kind of, it's a fairly cheap item. You can, you know, buy it relatively easily. Alright, so it's kind of the same scenario as previous game. You're getting pushed, you need an item that's gonna stop enemy carry like from doing damage. They go on him, like Morta is the enemy carry. Some Bara procced Lincolns. To be fair, it does seem like it would be just better to proc Lincolns with Hans Halberd. But Morta is disarmed, and actually, because she has no BKB, there's no way for her. There's no way for her to fix that. The unfortunate part is, of course, that Collapse uses Static Link on Morta, who has Lotus Orb on her. And well, but you can see he legitimately survived 3 seconds longer because of Halberd. Otherwise, Morta would just kill him. There was nothing to stop that. Maybe Shadow Demon could save him, etc. So Halberd, in some sense, was It wasn't effective in terms of winning, but it was like it did its job. But again, this idea that Halberd is like last minute buy when you're in a desperate situation kind of comes up again. Okay. This is a bit different, and actually, I think kind of unexpected, at least for me. BZM bought Halberd. Again, when you see these things come up, you kind of, especially item is kind of considered dead. It makes you think there's something to the item because definitely several players already kind of thinking about it. So what BZM does is even crazier. He buys it instead of Solar Crest. Instead of my bad. Instead of. So he has Spirit Vessel. He buys Halberd and sells Spirit Vessel. They're winning pretty hard, so it's hard to say like how serious this decision was. But it's interesting to me that he just gave up Spirit Vessel for Halberd. As you can see, even on like a melee hero with no like range, it's kind of safe to use it. Gyro with Repair has to use BKB to attack. Kinda, if you can kite this out, it can be pretty good. I can't say it was very effective, but it is something. I can see Halberd is, cooldown is coming back. Now when he has Halberd, he goes back in. And now he Halberds him, and the guy is literally 31,000 net worth not being utilized for 3 seconds. It's as if, like, in some sense, it's like 3 seconds stun. And what we're seeing here is like late game, it can actually be pretty crazy. Like what the item can do. In some sense, you can compare it to Blade Mail when people used to buy, like, if some, like, let's say you have enemy sniper who buys Rapier late game, you buy Blade Mail on some tanky hero, and he might just, not notice and kill himself with it. Here they get Mega Creeps and, well, let me check. He's not gonna use, I think, it and again, but they kind of farm a little bit, and we can just see some nice gameplay from BZM later. So they're crazy ahead on gold. BZM just goes in, gets hexed. Gyro has to sort of BKB. Well, Gyro gets caught, so there's no really any need for Halberd. He just dies. But then BZM just kind of styles. Just does whatever he wants. Dodges the X-Mark and GG's. Okay, so another example where late game Halberd kind of did something useful. So that's pretty nice. And with that, this is it. This is like the 3 games that Halberd, like the 3 times that Halberd was bought in Dream League. That's it. And tournaments before that, nobody bought it. I mean, tier 1 tournaments, basically. All right, so this is not over yet. But this is a little bit different already. This is a tier below. So we looked at tier 1 teams who are buying this item. This is a Winter Bear, and Winter Bear won EPL 34. And actually, the person who buys the Halberd the most is Delight. This gentleman from Winter Bear. He buys it mostly on Phoenix. I don't know if he bought it on anybody else. I did not include in my like stats. I did not include the group stage matches from EPL. Maybe I'll do it later, but I don't think they're that important. But he is the one who buys it quite often. In this game, however, it wasn't him. It was this Enigma, and again, as you can see, they're losing pretty hard. There's no BKB TA with a lot of damage. So this idea again comes up. So this idea is, I mean, these are, we looked at different players. We are now looking at the different tier of players. So not players exactly, but different tier of competition. So there's this, like in the ether, there's this idea of Halberd that exists. And in this case, it didn't go so well. So yeah, this is the fight. So Enigma decides to buy Halberd, and it wasn't like kind of Enigma is far away from her final build. She's obviously playing against Warlock, so kind of buying BKB Blink is a bit silly. But you can certainly buy Crimson Guard, and maybe that was his plan, although I don't know, it doesn't look like it. Here, however, Halberd just did not work. So he uses Pipe and Black Holes. Realistically speaking, it does look like if he had the Blink Dagger, maybe it would have been slightly better. But here Halberd just doesn't really do anything. He kind of tries to run in and use it, but doesn't manage to. So the same idea just didn't work at all. I mean, they lose a little bit later on. But this is the same team as Delight. All right, we're not gonna look at too many games by Winterbear, but this is the final game. This is game 5 of the best of 5. This is a final, and so in the final game, player who won the tournament, congratulations by the way, very nice. He insists on going for this item. So I think this is like very important to understand that these are not, I don't think these are random actions. Delight is like an expert on Phoenix, and if he is buying this on Phoenix, at least I think people should think about it, especially because Phoenix is very in the meta, has very high win rate, somewhat easy to pick right now in a sense, like people don't actually ban it that much. So here he buys it, and the thing that I want to look at in this specific game sorry, I just get like sore throat talking so much. The thing, like we looked at, situation we looked at before was where people buy it late game specifically to, or okay, let's say Enigma bought it earlier, but specifically in situation where they want to use it in a big fight. It doesn't have to be like set up by your team, etc. It's just you and the enemy carry, and you decide when to click it on him, etc. It's like an interplay between the two of you. Because really, it's Halberd and BKB. Those are the two items that interact. Everything else just, you know, unless you have pick like Ursa, Weaver, I don't remember Nyx is strong dispel or not. We can check. Basic dispel. So unless it's like Ursa, Weaver, maybe a Nyx, yeah, okay. So it will yeah, debuff immune, so it is good. Unless it's those heroes, it's like player 1 against player 2, Halberd versus BKB. But when you buy it this early, here's the thing. To use it properly, you actually need like a specific fight configuration. In some sense, it can be way more impactful early, or it can be way less impactful because by the time you kind of use it, one of your teammates was already dead. Like the fights they have a different kind of nature to them than late game fights. And here, what we can see is, you know, Radiant is 19 ahead at 19 minutes. It's right before Tormentor. You know, you see Tiny in the enemy base, like Why is he there? Nobody knows. You know, like it's hard. And in this scenario, if we look from Phoenix's perspective, I mean, using Halberd is gonna be not easy because his team is essentially not playing around that. Realistically, what you want is to see carry somewhere trying to commit for a kill, or maybe even, you know, center trying to go for a kill with like Muerta behind him, and then this disrupts the fight. So you kind of want to disrupt the fight and use your spells well. I mean, it's obviously impossible when your team just completely ruins your positioning, right? So in that sense, Halberd represents sort of an item that if you buy it early, you kind of have to expect your team to play accordingly to what you can do, to what you can add. Because Halberd is not like drums, it's not like pipe, it's not like what was it called? It's not like Solar Crest, not like Glimmer, not like Force Staff. It's a different kind of interaction. So it requires your team to do something different as well, I think. Sorry, I think, excuse me if this is too loud. How do I? Sorry. Okay, I think this should be fine. All right, so the idea is that you kind of need your team to play accordingly. And if you remember Helm of the Dominator, I think it had the similar type of story where if you tried to play it in pubs before it got popular, people just did not understand how to play with you because it changed the game. When your offlaner is not buying Blade Mail but buying Helm of the Dominator and is trying to, you know, drag creep waves, you know, farm a couple of spots at the same time, stack, etc. It changes the game so much that the enemy, like, the enemy can feel the pressure maybe, but your team feels almost even more pressure because they don't understand what's happening. So I think Halberd has the same kind of feel to it if you buy it early, that it changes the way what you should expect from your support. Here, obviously, it didn't work at all because, again, they ruined their own positioning, right? I mean, I can flame them all day, honestly, for this. I mean, there's... you know, at least when you see teams fight here before 20 minutes, it kind of makes sense. They kind of want to win the fight and take Tormentor, maybe pressure this tower, etc. But fighting here before Tormentor makes absolutely no sense. What's the next time in 2440? So there are still 7k ahead. It's 24 minutes. Enemies are doing Rosh. I mean, it's quite clear what he was trying to do. Just trying to disrupt Muerta's, you know, Muerta killing Rosh, because she's kind of the only one hidden. Unfortunately, gets hexed, buys back. I mean, they're kind of forced to go in. Unfortunately, doesn't manage, like, Ember doesn't manage to steal Aegis. This is pretty cool, actually. What Nyx, like, the way Nyx got into the pit, that was actually pretty cool. Okay, they kill Muerta twice. Pretty good. But again, no effect from Heaven's Halberd. As you can see, it's not that easy actually to use on Phoenix because you can't use it during Supernova. So it kind of, you know, you can see how it is sort of awkward because it's different. It doesn't really mean it's bad or good. It's just, at least it seems different. But it's, you know, we at least seen one scenario where it has its place, like late game, just countering Satanic, for example. Again, there's a fight here. Phoenix kind of lost to get here. And, you know, more the Bicky beats, so there's no point to use Heaven's Halberd. Again, the same kind of problem that the fight kind of stretches out, goes somewhere, there isn't really this clear path to use Halberd. Even though theoretically now that the Muerta doesn't have BKB, it should be possible. But you can see how there are difficulties with the item, like the way the item works, there are difficulties with it. This is an interesting situation because you can see now that Muerta used BKB, and she's kind of stuck now. Well, she gets stunned, and now she gets disarmed. And you can see that no damage coming out. Only now damage starts to come out. It was solid, basically, this lasts 6 seconds, but basically half of the duration Muerta could not attack. It's quite significant. Because of that, again, if she could attack all this time, she would have had the time to kind of set up the fight in such a way that maybe they would have advantage when she comes out of the card, and then they can continue the fight and maybe win it. But because she couldn't attack, I mean, it really made a difference. But then again, you can see how it's not that easy to kind of... It's not that simple of an item, you know? It's not pipe that you just click and that's it. The supports die. Still having Halberd available. There's some crazy initiation by Ember. Buyback from Jakiro. Again, you can see, like, when there's this distance, like, really a long distance, getting somewhere to the backline and using it is pretty much impossible. And it's interesting that, you know, in the game, if your team doesn't really understand what it is you're trying to do, it's gonna be difficult to actually use it, because if you try to use it, you will end up dying, kind of like Phoenix died here, maybe, or died here. But if your team kind of plays a little bit around it, it might actually be really strong. Okay, so... they did manage to lose their advantage and bring it back. Here Muerta is disarmed, and, well, she has BKB, but she doesn't want to use it, right? So if we look at this from Muerta's perspective, she kind of steps forward. Just, you know, kind of fighting. Doesn't use the ult though. Kinda, because I think partially because now she has to kind of take it into account. Like, I cannot just ult and try to kill people, because if I ult, I will almost certainly have to BKB at the same time. And so there's this, like, very serious inconvenience that kind of follows Muerta now. And when we're talking about heroes that do a lot of damage, you know, just staying in the same place, like this glass cannon, like Muerta is probably, you know, #1. And here she gets disarmed, and she has to get out. Like, she has to kind of choose what is she doing. She either has to BKB and fight or get out. Like, you can see how the interaction just makes it not so simple for Muerta to understand, you know, what should be the reaction. Well, even though it's kind of uneventful in some sense, it's like this interplay that stabilizes the game right now. I think it goes like this. Okay, so there's Roche. There's a fight. So Muerta this time around uses BKB and ult at the same, like, early. Where did... Oh yeah, because yeah, well she has to. Yeah, because she is halberded. Yeah. So she just has to do it. Otherwise she's gonna be standing in the middle of the fight, uh you know, just disarmed. So in some sense, if you kind of like here, for example, they just dodge her as soon as she BKBs, right? Just trying to kite her. That really sets up the fight, because if we look from Morta's like perspective, yeah, so she ults and then she has to BKB because of, you know, disarm and all of that happening. But once that runs out and, you know, kind of, she didn't manage to really inflict like extreme damage. It becomes a little too difficult to actually do anything really. Because again, she is stuck in the middle of the team fight. So the game progressed. The Nyx now has Aegis 23,000 gold advantage. Morta bought Rapier. There's push. Phoenix had no ability to, you know, get in because he doesn't have Vicar's Drive. And well, Morta just BKBs instantly as soon as she gets disarmed. It's almost now that whenever she sees Phoenix running at her, she just BKBs. It's kind of funny. All right, well, the game, it ended up being a long game. I mean, Radiant had 8k in this spot at 20 minutes, but you can see how long the game becomes if you kind of make those mistakes. Yeah, 54 minutes. And it's not even over yet, you know, it's like... Alright, so there's Roche respawn. Yeah, that was a little too fast. So there's Roche. They just kind of, you know, insta-kill Phoenix. And insta-kill him again, so he isn't gonna contribute Ms. Halberd. But in some sense, like, you can see how as time goes on, Halberd doesn't really lose in value. It kind of starts gaining in value. Because well, not exactly gaining, at least it stays on the same level, because like, even though the change, like the nature of the fight changes, but it was maybe less of an inconvenience for Muerta early game because how Radiant played in general, but as game progresses, Muerta has to consider Halberd more and more, because there's just not that many things you can do to counterplay it. It's literally, in this game specifically, it's just BKB, that's it. Actually, let's check something. Is Shadow Demon... It's basic dispel, right? Yeah, basic dispel. So realistically, there's only BKB. Unless you have like Omni Knight or Abaddon. Does Omni Knight even... I don't even remember now. Is it even strong dispel? It doesn't even dispel anymore. Oh wait. So it doesn't dispel, but it gives you more for every debuff on you or whatever. So I guess it's just Abaddon, kind of. So Phoenix is dead, but for those who are wondering, yeah, they still kill Muerta anyway. Muerta buys back. Alright, well, not much longer left. So Muerta gets Aegis. And well, we're still kind of thinking about Halberd. And you know, if Halberd becomes useless, you can disassemble it into Ion Disc, for example. Initiation on Centaur, Muerta use her ult. Trying to do damage, but didn't really do any damage. Albert obviously doesn't do anything as she Beaky beat, and then, you know, used Refresher, I think. I don't think we're gonna see a secondary. Okay, again. But this is just, it already feels like it's kind of over, doesn't really matter. But at the same time, though, you know, for Muerta, her ult is running out, so she has like what, you know, a couple of, like 3 seconds maybe still left. And then that's it. Like, once this disarm comes out, it's over. Like, the fight is over for Muerta. She still does have rapier, but without her ult, you know, it's very difficult to do damage on that hero, I think. Still has cheese, but no way to really fight. And I that made me laugh. Fortnite, man, GG, easy. That I don't know. For some reason, that was really funny to me because the game didn't look easy at all, and it's like pretty crazy. Anyway, this was a very long video. It's almost 90 minutes long. If you made it till the end, congratulations. You're gonna win TI. But I hope this kind of makes a case for at least looking at Halberd, and if the patch comes, maybe some changes to other items, maybe some changes to heroes, where Halberd will, you know, come into the meta. So maybe, you know, if you're thinking about it right now, you're gonna have a head start on the next patch. But we'll see. Overall, I think this item deserves some experimentation, and you know, if you make it work, then, you know, maybe let me know, because I would be very interested to know in what situations it can work. We didn't look at the pub stats, but, you know, like Spiritbreaker has pretty good win rate with it. Bounty Hunter has pretty good win rate with it, and it kind of makes sense. Those heroes, you know, they get in, they want survivability, but at the same time, they really are not there, excuse me, to kill. They're there to simply disrupt in some cases, or like set up the fight. So that item kind of makes sense with what the hero does. So yeah, good luck everybody, and, you know, thank you for your time. See you in the next one. Peace.